Can you describe the ideal head and expression of the breed?
The head piece is described a lot in the standard, and talking about head breeds, we have some breeds which we are talking more about the head than the rest, but I think with a Bracco, I think most Bracco people would say a Bracco without the correct head is not a Bracco. The silhouette of the head must have diverted planes. Some dogs have more and some dogs have less, but there must be diverted. The Roman nose is not absolutely necessary, but it's an extra point. And the idea is that the dog, when working with a little bit Roman nose, they get the scent. Then when the wind is in the face, they get the scent easier straight up in the nose. So that was the function of it. The head must not be wide in the skull. It's a quite elegant head. The ears must not be too high set and not too low set. When showing the Bracco, we don't want them to stand with listening ears and people stand with bait and treats in front of them and making them and throwing things. We don't want that expression. We want an expression which is intelligent, mild, and noble. And also the shape of the lips, it's important. You don't want to have a too heavy silhouette, but not, the lips must be visible. You must see the lips. They must not look too snipey. When seeing the head from the front, the muzzle is quite flat. You don't want a filled out face. You want a quite flat face, which goes with the elegant skull. Sometimes young dogs can have exactly up on the over the eyes, they have little bumpy heads usually, but you can see it in young males. And this, when the dog is maturing and the head is drying up, these bumps usually disappear. Not always totally, but usually the head of a young Bracco will always improve, and the heads can change quite a lot when they are maturing.
Can you describe the neck, top line, and body of the breed?
As I said before, I think that a Bracco has to have not an extremely long neck, but they must have a good neck. They usually, a nice dog, have a little bit of neck arch, not a lot, just a little bit. It must be a strong neck, not a too thin neck, but not a short, absolutely not a short cobby neck. The neck set must go smooth into the shoulder. We see some dogs with a little bit too abrupt, sharp neck set, and that is usually when the shoulder is too upright. So it is important, it's a smooth neck set. The top line, we talked a bit before about the top line, and of course the dip should be visible, especially on an adult dog. It must be visible. Not too much though, because sometimes we see Braccos which are overdone and they are weak. And these dogs, when you see them moving, you will see that it's not a strong top line, and a top line which is with too much dip usually is not a top line which is holding on. It is not helping the dog when it's out in the field. So a little dip and a quite steep croup, but not too short croup. It must be a long croup, which make the dog having possibility also to drive well with the rear. Tail set, we did not talk about the tail. The tail, both when standing and moving, is important because we often see Bracos with a little bit too high tail set, and with on the move they keep the tail a little bit too high, and this is something which become a bit difficult now when we also see Bracos with undocked tails. But the tail should not be held over the top line. When the dog is out in the field and get excited, it can for a moment lift a little bit more, but it should preferably not be over the top line. And that also when people are handling Bracos, don't put the tail up. Tail should not be held like on a shorted pointer or other sporting dogs where you keep it more up. It's important that you just keep it straight out. When the Braco is trotting, one very special thing is to see how they keep the tail, because the tail must preferably be moved in the rhythm of the dog's trotting. And it goes like, now I don't know how you call it, this tick-tock thing, but you don't want it up, you want it level, and it should go with the dog's trotting, tick-tock, tick-tock. That is a thing we see on the correct Braco with a dock tail. This is more difficult when they have the long tail, but anyhow, when the Braco is moving, it's something which is very nice to see how the tail is moving. A Braco in the field, when they see game, they start to move the tail very quickly. Also, a Braco which is a little bit nervous can also start to move the tail a bit quick. But then when they do ferma, when they do a point, the tail stop and they stand absolutely still. So the tail is quite important, and in Italy is one thing that judges do mark. A dog with a tail down would not be placed. So a dog which keeping the tail down all the time, especially on the move, that is not what we want to see.